welcome back to Part-Time Characters. My name is Maria and I am your host, and this is a show where we talk about movies as if we were part-time employees at a video store. And it's been a really long time. We're very sorry about that, but we're back, and with me I have the people that you all know and love. Let's start with Bridget. Bridget, how's it going?
It's going. How about you, Maria?
It's not too bad, I have to say. I do miss talking to you guys via the web.
Yeah, agreed.
You want to tell people a little bit what you've been up to?
I've been working. That's the main gist of it. Secret stuff is going on in my life. But it's basically just work right now. That's
cool.
it.
I don't know if we covered the fact that you moved, because it's been a while.
I think last anyone heard I was moving. So yeah, I'm in Connecticut now. I have a new job, and it's decent. It does the trick.
Yeah, Bridget is adulting, and I can no longer say from New York.
Yeah,
from Connecticut.
Sorry.
It's not the same like jazzy feel to it. I'm sorry.
I know Connecticut's just like, yeah.
It's Connecticut.
Yeah.
All right. So, to another city that doesn't have the same jazz to it. I'm sorry, Adonis. We have Adonis Gonzalez from Arizona. How's it going, Adonis?
It was going well until you insulted my city. I mean...
I know. I feel like I didn't give you guys a proper introduction. I'm sorry, just like being very negative on all of you.
I mean, it's fine. The Buckeye Community Board will be hearing about this, and I'm not sure.
I'll be hearing from all of you, I know.
I don't even think I'm not really sure if Buckeye has a community per se. I think it's just like a goat, a couple of other farm animals, but we will be hearing about this.
Okay, I'll wait for that letter. Sorry.
They can't write, they're animals, but...
There's probably people.
Probably people. You have to see them.
Okay. So, we haven't heard from you the longest, I think. So, what have you been up to, Adonis?
Nothing much, really. I've just been working, focusing on school, trying to make money, as the kids say these days, you know, the struggle. Trying to afford rent when minimum wage is lower than the hourly wage you need to afford rent, but that's pretty much it. Nothing big.
Fantastic.
Working at a movie theater, so that's really fun.
Been enjoying that?
Yeah, it's cool getting to see like movies for free every once in a while.
I mean, that sounds like a perk. I'd be down for that. Well, it's really good to have you back, and we have a really big movie to talk about. Before we get into that, there's not much going on with me either. I've been back and forward from Amsterdam to Puerto Rico. I'm in Puerto Rico now. The island is more stable, still has a lot of issues, but life is pretty good so far. So that's what's been going on for the past few months. See, you guys didn't miss out on much, so here we are, back together. Okay, so today we are going to talk about Solo, the latest Star Wars movie in their anthology movies, and what we thought about it, upcoming Star Wars movies, and if we believe that the Star Wars franchise is sort of suffering from fatigue at this point, or if it's still like going strong, how we feel about that, what we think about it in general. So we have all seen Solo, which is a first in quite a while that we've all seen the same movie. So it's pretty self-explanatory. It is the story of Han Solo when he was younger. Now he became the character you know from the rest of the movies. And that's pretty much it. So if you guys want to start with just a few words or describe it in a sentence, your experience, go right ahead.
Do you want to start, Bridget, or?
Sure. I went into this movie with very low expectations, and I came out satisfied. So I think that pretty well sums up my thoughts on this movie.
Do you think 100% satisfied?
I haven't figured that far out. I just saw it yesterday, so I still haven't filtered through all of my thoughts yet.
All right.
But I was satisfied.
Cool. What about you, Adonis?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much in the same boat. I saw yesterday too. I went in. To be honest, there's not a lot of times where I'll go into a movie just expecting not to enjoy it, but something about this movie just made me think I'm not going to have a lot of fun with this. It just didn't seem like a necessary Star Wars story, you know? And I know it's Solo, a Star Wars story, but it just didn't seem like a necessary one for them to tell right now, especially with Last Jedi just coming out and, you know, people waiting for episode 9. It kind of just feels like a sudden halt in progress. But I walked out like pretty much like Bridget, really satisfied. I wouldn't say 100%. There are a few flaws I found with the movie, like during watching it and then thinking about it afterwards. But all in all, like I walked out liking it a lot more than I thought I was going to.
Okay, I'm a little bit worried that because we all had such terribly low expectations, now we think this movie is good, and they've tricked us in some way.
It's possible.
I think it is. I mean, I'm not disagreeing. My short summary is I feel pretty much the same as you guys. I thought it was going to be absolutely terrible. It was enjoyable. It was not a movie that I would have walked out on, but I still feel like it was unnecessary, like Adonis said, and it doesn't really make me feel anything new for Star Wars in general. All right, so let's get a little bit deeper into the movie. So the movie starts without the classic intro of Star Wars, which I think was kind of interesting. Does anybody remember how Rogue One started? Because I do feel like it started the same way as the other ones.
Did it have a crawl? I can't remember. One of the new ones did not have the Star Wars crawl, and they were talking about how they're trying to move away from that for whatever odd reason.
If that is the case, it has to be Rogue One, because I don't think they would do that with the trilogy that is happening right now. So maybe that's what they're doing for the anthology ones. It's totally fine. I kind of do miss, hearing John Williams score immediately, but it's fine. We can separate them. So the initial story is that we are, of course, in a galaxy that is a mess, and we are in a planet called Corellia, which I think is like a shipbuilding kind of world, and orphan children. Sorry?
I was just agreeing with you that it's a shipbuilding world.
There we go. And basically, children that are orphans are made to steal to survive. So think Oliver and Annie and anything kind of like that. That's kind of like the feeling I got from the beginning. Obviously, not the same, but kind of. And Han is looking for a way for him and his girlfriend, Kira, to leave this planet and, be free of everything. And that's kind of where it starts. They get separated. Han's mission is to kind of get her back and what he has to do in order to find her again. That's sort of like the main plot of the story. Now, I want to talk immediately about Corellia. I don't think we've seen this planet before, have we?
No.
I'm not really good with Star Wars and the planets and what's been shown and what's canon, so that's why I'm asking, because I don't want to assume things.
I think it was...
It's very possible.
I was just going to say that I'm pretty sure it was in the original comics before Disney just axed all of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask what you thought of the first few scenes in Corellia, because to me, it felt a bit underwhelming for the beginning of a Star Wars movie, regardless if it's part of the trilogy or not. It just felt, I don't know, it didn't really move me. I didn't really care that much. So, like, the first impression of Han Solo, how did you feel about this guy being Han?
First impression, I guess, so throughout the movie, he kind of didn't really give off a young Harrison Ford vibe, but he gave off a Han Solo vibe, I think, at least to me from the get-go, just through his actions. And that was my main concern going into this movie, was that this guy just wasn't going to act like Han Solo, or he was going to act a little bit too much like Han Solo to the point where he is basically being a Harrison Ford impressionist. Either way, it would have probably been a really bad decision. But I think that he, initially starting the movie off in Corellia with the whole car chase scene and everything, or speeder scene, whatever you call those. I think they call them cars in Star Wars. I think that he definitely started off strongly, or at least like mid strong with how he was acting as a Han Solo. I think that what he was doing is something that Han Solo would have done. I don't want to go too much in the spoilers, that's why I'm trying to be careful with what I say. But I don't know. I agree with you that the Corellian scene was pretty underwhelming, only because it was kind of really quick and pretty predictable. Like you said, it was pretty much Oliver and Annie meet Star Wars, and it didn't really offer a lot to his character other than something we've already known about him, is that he's always on the run. And his love interest is kind of, I know we're going to talk about it later, but I just want to point out now that Emilia Clarke, I really like her in Game of Thrones, but in this movie, I don't know, it might have just been me, but it kind of felt like halfway through, she kind of just started playing a different character, or stopped really caring about how her character is supposed to act, because she gives off this sort of ride or die-esque mentality with Han, like at the beginning, but then like her whole, it's not just the character's personality, but the whole way that she's acting as the character kind of changes at the middle of the movie. And I think that was just, I don't know if that's just me, but I don't know if you guys felt the same way about it.
I was going to agree with Adonis about Kira's character, how halfway through she does just sort of not, it's almost like a whole different character to an extent. I mean, there's a 3-year gap there, so that could explain it, and they do say that we don't understand everything that she's had to go through to get to this point, but it still seems like a whole departure from what we saw in the very beginning. But as far as Han and Corellia are concerned, like, he just seemed, up until the very end, way too plucky to be Han Solo.
Yes, I think, that word really, like, captured it. I've been going through my mind, like, what is it? It's like, it's not Han, but I don't know what it is, and that's what it is, yeah. It reminded me of Aladdin a lot, and I like, Han Solo's not Aladdin, you know? And I get, they got some things right, because like you said, he's like an outcast, and he's on the run all the time, and part of the personality of Han Solo when we meet him, and I get it, it doesn't have to happen yet, is that he doesn't really care about anything but himself. And I get it. This is a young Han, and he's optimistic, and he has these goals, and I get that kind of changes throughout. But I don't know. There was just something kind of missing, or something added that it didn't feel like him. He's very plucky, kind of goofy, and I don't find Han Solo goofy. Like, he's the cool guy, you know. He's the guy you want to be, and that's who he was in Star Wars. And I don't know. Like, there were definitely some qualities that they got right, and how mischievous and smart he was. And so yeah, I kind of didn't get that. I feel the same way as you, Bridget.
Yeah,
I definitely see where you guys are coming from. I just feel like overall, this was, like, it was a little jarring to see him that plucky. I guess I really like that word, so I'm they're using that.
I know, it's a good word.
It was weird seeing him like that, because that's not usually how we see Han Solo. But I think I enjoyed a little bit more what they did with Han Solo than most people, just because my biggest thing about Solo and like the original trilogy was like, yeah, he was a really cool guy, but he was really only there to say one-liners and like do cool stuff. And we did get a little bit of his backstory, but we didn't really like dive into him as a character until Force Awakens, when we saw, you know, his whole relationship with Leia, his son, and his relationship with the Force and with Luke, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And it's just like in the original trilogies, there wasn't really a lot of time to go into Han's story as a character, more so where he fit into Luke's story. And the only time that we actually got into his backstory was during like when we met Lando. The whole betrayal thing happened in the second movie. But I do like what they did with him in this movie, just because it kind of shows the progression of him getting to the Han Solo that people know and love in the original trilogy and in the new trilogy. I can definitely see, like, once the movie ends and it gets to like the final scene, and you just see like what he's been through and everything, you kind of see him going towards there. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a Solo 2. It ends in such a way that there's no way this is going to be the only Solo movie.
Lucky us.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, I walked out like enjoying it enough to not really mind a second one, but I don't know if I want it to be like the same way this one made me feel. They'd really have to do more. They're going to make like a whole Solo. It's probably going to be a trilogy of Solo movies.
Yeah. I think that's, you mentioned, I'm sorry, I'm going to let you finish. Like Kanye.
No, I was just saying, I hope that if they do that, like they make more movies, that we see on, you know, his character develop more, and he doesn't just stay this plucky character and all of a sudden it's like a sudden character change from how he was in the original trilogy. Because like I said, I see him getting there, but I don't think he's there quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, if you are going to do two more movies about Solo, you definitely have to push him forward. That's a thing. Right. I think it's just very problematic, and it's one of my annoyances when people take side characters that are so perfect in their job, and then you just remove them from everything that made them what you like. You know, I think that's very difficult to then create a full-fledged character. It doesn't always work, and that's kind of, I think, one of the reasons why people were not so excited about Solo. It's like, why are you gonna touch anything that Harrison Ford did? Like, just don't, you know? And I think in part it could be finding the right guy. I I don't know how I feel about discount Chris Pine. Like, he's just there. I don't. He's very handsome and he's charming for sure. But I don't know. Like, you know how you hear like, oh, we're gonna cast someone, and then you see them and you're like, yes, that's the guy. Like, I didn't feel that at any moment with this guy. It just felt like someone completely new as a character to me.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. Because like he was a good actor. He did better than I thought he was going to do. Because I was really worried he just wasn't going to be a good actor at all. But like you said, like he just doesn't really he doesn't really encompass what Harrison Ford did for the character. And like I said, I'm sure if they make more, hopefully they'll get him to there and he can make that transition as an actor and as a character. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit out of a crossroads with him. Like as Han Solo, I think as a character in the movie, he did a really good job, but it just didn't feel like at no point in this movie did I feel like this was the same Han Solo I've seen in other movies. And it was weird because it's not like I didn't enjoy that. It was just also kind of jarring because it's supposed to be the same Han Solo. Oh, also, like a little side thing here, I really don't like how he got his name. I thought that was kind of corny, but
yeah, let's talk. Okay, talking about Corellia. Yeah, I'm talking about the whole first scene. This is another thing that bugs me about prequels or side movies about it. Like, I don't need. This happened to me also. Like, for example, Finding Dory. Like, I don't need to know how Dory speaks whale. Like, I can accept completely that Dory speaks whale, and that's it. I don't need to find out how she got it. I never in my life question why Han Solo's name is Han Solo. I don't care. So it was just so corny.
It was his last name.
As soon as they were like last name, I was like, ugh, I know where this is going. I was in my head, it was like he was gonna say, I'm flying solo, and like some crap like that. It was just as bad. Bridget, how did you feel about that part?
I don't think I've ever more aggressively rolled my eyes at a movie before.
They almost got stuck in the back of your head.
Yeah, like my head hurt after it.
And you see it coming as well. You're like, oh, here we go. This is what's happening.
Like,
no, that was silly. I didn't need that at all, honestly. And that's kind of how I felt about several moments in this movie, but we'll get to that later. Moving to Kira, played by Emilia Clarke. I don't think it was her fault. I don't think it was a character written very well. I think this is very much the definition of a female character written to move his story along. So, because it will show, who he loved beforehand and how he was betrayed at some point. I mean, this is not a spoiler. We know he doesn't end up with her, right? Like, we know this, right? He ends up with Leia. So,
I mean, unless he has a lot of explaining to do with Leia.
Yeah, we don't.
Sure
I think people know, and I think maybe that's also one of the reasons going in, I didn't feel very attached to her, because I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, this is not lasting, right? Like, this is not a thing that's gonna be important. So I don't know if that was in part what it was. I don't know if the fact that they just didn't write her well enough as a character and just as a tool for him. I don't mind the fact that her character changes halfway through, because there's a space of time where they don't see each other and we don't know what she's done, and she has to be clearly a different person. I think that's part of the appeal. My problem was that they gave us no explanation. She's suddenly in this place. She's obviously done some things, because she tells us, and everybody tells us, she's done horrible things, but no one says anything else. That's pretty much it.
I mean, it's very implied, but it's never really outright said what she's done or what part she's played. I mean, we know that she was, she ended up with the wrong people because she owed people things. That seems to be a lot of why these characters are in these situations, because they owe people things, and so they have to go settle this score, et cetera, et cetera. You don't really get to see, like, or hear even, like, why she's there and what she's doing. And I mean, it's true that it's been like 3-4 years since they've seen each other, and she's gone through a lot of stuff, so obviously she's going to be a different person. But it just kind of felt, I don't know, like it just felt like she wasn't really a character who had gone through stuff and therefore is a different person. She just felt like a completely different person entirely to me, and that was really more so in how Emilia Clarke was acting as her halfway through the movie. It just kind of seemed like she completely changed her method, and that was like a little jarring for me. But it's weird, because when she gets, like, when she finally, like, when her and Han are like in scenes together later on, it's kind of like character she was before comes back a little bit. So I guess it's kind of like explained in that she hasn't really seen him in a while, and then she's gone through some stuff, and now she's going back to how she was before. I don't know. It's weird. We also, I mean,
Right,
also
yeah.
I didn't even think about it. We didn't really see her outside of his perspective before, because like they share the first scene together. So it's really how she's acting around him. We don't really see how she acts alone. So I guess that's kind of a good way to explain it, why she just seems sort of different when we meet her again.
Bridget, how did you feel about the Mother of Dragons? And also, like, what did you think about their chemistry?
I'm gonna address Kira first before I get to the chemistry. I
Right.
Just before I saw the movie, I'd watched an interview with her, and she was talking about her character, and she said that you can't always tell what's going through Kira's head, and you could like sort of see that, but on the same hand, throughout the whole movie, you knew she was gonna end up helping Han. But with that thrown in there, I started paying more attention to the little things she was doing. It didn't give me any sort of insight, except for in like the very beginning with the coaxium when they were trying to leave from Corellia, and she originally wasn't going to hand it over, and he had to like force her to do it. And I think that showed sort of who she was going to become later on, much more than like we ever saw in any other scenes with her earlier.
That's a good point.
But that's the only like connection between early Kira and later on Kira that I was able to see. But like you guys said, she just seemed like she was written in to help Han's story along. They could have done or should have done a whole lot better with her character and her like motivations and everything, but they just chose not to. As far as their chemistry goes, it was fine. It seemed very fake. Like he was very much interested in her, and like they clearly were like had a history, and like you could feel that with the two of them together, but it also seemed like this was just something fun for her.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it's because we know what we know from the Star Wars movies, and maybe I just didn't count her in as a strong player for the rest of whatever it's going to happen. But I guess I just didn't care that much. Like his motivation, which is her, I was just like, oh, okay, well, something will happen with that, I guess. And then when they do have a moment, which I feel like they kind of try to replicate a little bit, the Leia and Han kiss was not at all as interesting to me when it happened. It just felt really quick and out of nowhere. And I was just like, oh, okay, fine, this is happening, I suppose. And it's sweet or whatever. But I don't know. I wasn't that invested in the whole situation. Hold on, my dog is demanding things. You can keep talking.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree with the chemistry. It just didn't really seem like it was there at the time. I guess that's really just because it kind of wasn't. I mean, you can kind of tell that he's way more into her than she is into him at some point in the movie.
Yeah, but I think that was intentional.
Yeah, that was definitely intentional. I think like a lot of Han's personality towards her and towards other people was intentional, because it's kind of showing they're doing the cliche thing of the good guy always comes in last because he's too trusting, and Woody Harrelson's character tells him that several times throughout the movie. Never trust anyone. Same wise thing that people say in movies: always watch your back.
Yeah.
And I can see that they're kind of trying to show how Han got to be like the sort of like what's the word?
Scruffy looking nerf.
Yeah, that's. I mean, no, that's definitely weren't the words I was looking for, but those work. Yeah, that scrappy looking nerf herder.
Scruffy.
Type of character. Scruffy, thank you. Looking nerf guy. They kind of show how he's transforming into that, into the interactions he's been around, the interactions of the people he's been around. I don't know. I felt like Emilia Clarke was definitely, like, to me at least, like, weakest link in this movie. Like, all the acting was really good. I was surprised, honestly, because I don't know, like, maybe it was just the trailers, but a lot of it seemed like it was going to be a bunch of action shots and explosions and
it was
really bad, cheesy. I mean, there was definitely a lot of that in there, but there were some moments where like actually settled down for a second, which I wasn't expecting at all in this movie. I think I really enjoyed Woody Harrelson the most. I think he was my favorite character in this movie, because I mean he's playing Woody Harrelson pretty much. I mean, this is a character that he's done time and time again. The wise, drunken, badass mentor to the main character who feeds him sort of narcissistic or pessimistic advice. And he's like, the world's gonna get you, kid. You gotta watch your back at all times. But it's a character that he plays really well. So, I mean, I can't complain, even though I've seen it before. It's just when Woody Harrelson does it, I don't know. He's just...
I feel like you're basing this opinion
really
solely on Hunger Games, though.
No, Woody Harrelson's played this character a lot.
Has he? I mean, I'm not... Yeah, that's definitely what I think of when I think of Woody Harrelson, but I'm trying to think of something other than Hunger Games when he's specifically that guy.
I mean,
I guess you're right.
Even in War of the Planet of the Apes, he was the villain, but he also tried to give advice to the monkeys, in a mentorish way.
The monkeys.
I don't think he was trying to mentor the apes in any way. I think that was more of a concentration camp kind of situation.
No. Not that was the wrong word to use. What I mean is he's always trying to get them to see his point of view. Like he's never played the villain who's just like, I want to kill everything because I'm evil. He's always been the type of character, whether he's good or bad, has a larger motive, like a larger reason for why he's doing what he's doing. He always tries to get you to look inside his head and think the way he does. At least that's what I've seen in movies. Like even in what was that movie where he played the counselor, that teenage girl?
Yes, Edge of 17.
Yes, yeah. I don't know. That's how I've always seen his characters, and he has variety, definitely. I'm not saying he's like a one-trick pony, but it's just like when he plays that character, he just plays it really well, and I can't ever really complain.
Okay, speaking about other characters, very quickly, because I don't think it's that consequential. Paul Bettany, as I didn't either. There were some people there I just didn't even know were there, and I was pleasantly surprised. Paul Bettany was like I think the first 5 seconds when we see him, where he looks really scarred and evil, I was like, ooh, very cool. And then everything else was just like, I don't care. It's just some quasi evil guy with no consequence. I don't know. If this was the main villain, it was kind of boring.
Yeah, he didn't really do much. I was really expecting him to do more with those really cool lightsaber knuckle dusters he has.
Ooh, yeah.
Which, Jesus, where did he get those? Because I think a lot more people would invest in those because those are really cool.
I think everybody had a lot of questions about those. I just feel like if we need some kind of like generic British white guy with a dark cloak to symbolize evil in Star Wars movies, and this was sort of low for Star Wars because Paul Bettany, let's face it, he's really great. But even as because this was another predictable moment in a list of long predictable moments when Emilia Clarke shows up and we're like, oh, she's alive. She's happy. My brother turned to me. He was like, I bet you she's the girlfriend of the bad guy. And lo and behold, she's like his partner or whatever. And I was just like having another headache like Bridget, rolling my eyes. So I get that it's predictable and I get that we're going in this direction. But then for him to be sort of the obstacle, and maybe not the only obstacle between Han and Kira, he didn't feel menacing enough for me whenever he shows up. Like I'm waiting for this guy who will lose his mind over anything and pose a real threat. And that kind of wasn't the situation. I don't know. How did you feel about him?
I think, I don't really, it's like you said, Paul Bettany's a great actor, but I just don't think he was really given a great role. Like I feel like they could have done a lot more with him. I just don't think that they really paid much attention to the villain. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that was their main priority, which I mean, they were going to have a villain at all. It should have been up there on their priority list, but it kind of just felt like they needed a villain or some like single antagonistic force for people to direct their hate at, I guess. So they're just like, oh, let's just make this a knuckle duster gangster dude who owns like a yacht or something, and that'll be fine.
A yacht / spaceship, whatever that was. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
but you say, let's not make that our focus. You say, okay, I get that. But then what is your focus? Because if you're going to introduce to me all of these little things like the girl or the whatever villain, and it's inconsequential, so what is the point of your damn movie? Because, yeah, Han Solo is cool and all, but like at the end is like, what is the point of your movie? And that's kind of how I felt about it.
I think that they made sort of a mistake connecting him to Kira, at least in such a big way, because I feel like there's besides Han Solo, and really it's only Han Solo because in pop culture and like in Star Wars, we see Han Solo as one of the heroes, and he does a lot of heroic things, but even he himself is, sort of calls himself an outlaw, and he's sort of on the, what's that spectrum of like, there's like chaotic good and like lawful good, and
he's like neutral, I think. Like neutral good, I would say.
I think, yeah, I'd say he's neutral because he does good things and he definitely has a conscience, but always finds himself in bad situations with bad people. And I feel like this was kind of an example of that because there's not, when you really look at it, there's not anyone in this movie that isn't sort of doing bad things, like his team of outlaws, even Chewbacca is part of the team of outlaws, so you can argue that he's also kind of on the wrong side. And then they're working for the main villain, and yeah, he's still the villain, and obviously there's going to be a turning point. It's really predictable. I feel like connecting him to Kira so much just kind of put him in the spotlight as the big bad villain, and then he didn't really live up to that title. I feel like if they didn't, and they just made him the guy Han works for, and like just filled this movie up with criminals, and it's like, yeah, Han's got a conscience, but he's also, he's doing criminal type things around all these other criminals. I think that would have made it better because I really like movies like that. Like I really like Guardians of the Galaxy for that reason because they're heroes, yeah, but at the same time, the first movie, we're kind of just like a band of outlaws who kind of saved the galaxy just because they had to or they wanted to get paid. It's only now, like after Volume 2 and Infinity War, that they're more superheroes than they are outlaws. They still kind of hold on to that title. They're the good guys of the movie, but they still do bad things. Like I said, I think like connecting him to Kira sort of gave people a reason to put Han in like the superhero spotlight, and then Paul Bettany's character, whose name I can't actually remember. It's probably something really weird. It's never normal in Star Wars. Even
Dryden Boss.
Dryden Boss. There we go. Yeah. See, I was gonna call him like Igor or something.
Yeah, close.
But yeah, I feel like doing that kind of just raised our expectations for how he was going to be, and then he just didn't live up to it.
Yeah, I mean, I really only liked his character because I thought he was really interesting aesthetically. The fact that when he got angry, like his actual physicality came through, like his scars became more pronounced and his eyes started changing colors. And it made me like want to see what he actually looked like, and if those scars were scars or if they were just part of his face. And that's not exactly what you should take away from your villain. You shouldn't be sitting there thinking about what this person actually looks like. So, like, I agree with you in the connecting him too much to Kira. It kind of took away some of the weight of, like, what his just, like, evil villainousness could have been. It was just, like, he was the token, I'm going to get in the way of this relationship that's probably shouldn't exist in the first place.
Yeah, also, I mean, without giving too much away, like, with spoilers, I understand Han is, like, he's a very trusting character, but man, there were a lot of red flags about this movie that he just did not pick up on. I mean, a lot of them related to Dryden Boss and Kira, and every movie, well, not every movie, but a lot of movies have those points where you, as a watcher, are looking at the character and going, are you dumb? Like, can you clearly not see? But it's like they weren't even trying to hide like the actual intentions of these characters, and Han was just smiling like, everything will be all right in the end. And
yeah, you might have a good feeling about this, but still not going to end well.
It's not going to work out for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to stay a good feeling forever. I don't know. I just feel like he definitely could have picked up on some stuff. I mean, even characters in the movie were trying to tell him, and he just was not listening.
Yeah, he was like still stuck in this, like, what he had imagined would happen when he finally returned to find Kira. He had this whole fantasy of escaping Corellia, and then he had this whole fantasy of going back to pick her up, and repeatedly it hasn't worked out, and he just was like stuck thinking that it might.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the movie is trying to tell us that the relationship we should be worrying about is Han and Kira. We all know the real relationship we should be worrying about is Han and Chewie.
I thought you were going to do one of your bait and switch jokes, and I'm so happy that you didn't.
Yeah, no, I'm being serious.
Yeah, I think they had amazing chemistry. Like, Alden Ehrenreich, and I can't think of the actor who's Chewie right now, but the two of them just like work really well, which I was surprised with. I think it was like, sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying it's Jonas Suotamo. I don't know how to pronounce that name. I apologize, Jonas, if you're listening.
Probably not. I lost my train of thought. Oh, I was gonna say, you can like see their chemistry together like most prevalently in that first scene when they meet. Like they never met before, and they just very instantly figure out how to outsmart everyone around them. And I think that scene was just done really well, and it shows that how Han and Chewie end up just sticking with each other from there on out.
I agree. They had a lot of chemistry in the movie. The only part I didn't like was, like, ironically, the first scene. I liked how they got out together and they smarted everyone. I just feel like it was kind of rushed how quickly they kind of just got into that groove together, you know? Like, I was expecting a little bit more of stuff they had to go through to get to that relationship, because it kind of seemed like right off the bat they were like best of friends. And I don't know if this is like I mean, it's a spoiler, but I don't know if it's like a big spoiler. Just the way that he convinces Chewie to join him, like a certain way he does it, it was kind of like out of nowhere. Like, Maria was talking earlier about how he didn't really care that if they showed how Dory spoke whale, but I feel like there should have been a little bit more of an explanation in this movie when Han does the thing.
There's no precedence for it anywhere.
Yeah, no, and it's like you have to wonder how he even knows how to do that, considering his background and where he grew up. Like, where would he have learned? I mean, maybe in school it's like a second. I don't know if he went to school though, but
he may have learned it after joining the Empire.
Yeah, that's true. He might have had to learn other languages if he was going to different planets.
Yeah, especially pilot.
Yeah. It's not like a big thing. It's just it was kind of rushed at the beginning, but then it kind of got into this natural groove. And I'll admit, I got really nostalgic because, you know, it's Han Solo and Chewie. It's like Batman and Robin. It's a very iconic duo, and seeing them together like that in their prime and doing all of this stuff, it's really cool. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, agreed. I can definitely see where you're coming from, like with that first scene too, having your issues with them like quickly coming together, but it's just as rushed as like the majority of the rest of the movie.
Yeah, that's true.
So many characters are introduced, and we get like 2 seconds to get to know them, and they all have really cool, interesting, like, characteristics to them. Each one is very individual, and then they're just gone. Don't even get to know any of them.
I know they had a lot of stuff they had to explain, I guess, but I mean,
did they?
Yeah, not really. I mean, even especially with the revelation that there's probably going to be at least 2 more Solo movies, I feel like they really could have taken their time with a few of the things in this movie. It's not so rushed that you're like, it's more of an annoyance than like a really big negative factor in the movie. But I feel like they didn't need to rush through it. I'm really glad they didn't rush through Lando, though.
Oh, yes, please. Okay. I just want to say that to me, the movie really came to life when Lando showed up. And that whole segment when he was there was my favorite part of the whole movie. It's just the rest was, to me, disposable. That was the Star Wars movie I came to see. And I always forget if it's Donald or Daniel. It's Donald, right?
Donald.
Right.
Yeah, Donald Glover was just, you know how we were talking about you see an actor do the character and you're like, yes, that's right. Donald Glover just nailed it for me. I don't know how you guys felt about it, but he was the person to watch in this movie.
He was the reason I went to go see it.
Yes. I don't know. I feel like we got to him and it all just kind of finally made sense. And he was so suave and he was like so into himself and so confident. And I was like, yeah, that's Lando. That's exactly what I wanted to see. And he just played him so well. I really, really enjoyed everything that had to do with him.
Yeah, he was really good. I mean, what I really enjoyed about him is that he also like provided a way for the other actors to bounce off of him. You know, like it wasn't just like he walked in and stole the show completely and everyone else was like worse by comparison. He really like I said, they bounced off of him. And I really think that Alden Ehrenreich, am I saying the last name right?
Aaron Reich, I believe.
Aaron Reich, the guy who plays Han Solo, he really bounced off of him too with the whole Sabak scene. Those two characters, I mean, that was chemistry I was waiting to see for the entire movie.
Adonis, I'm really sorry, but you now sound like a super villain. You sound really deep. I don't know what happened to your microphone, but you sound very deep.
I actually just went through puberty for the second time. Do I still sound like that?
Yep.
A little, yeah.
Hello?
Oh,
That's better. Okay, that was super weird. Go on. You were saying the chemistry you were waiting to see.
Yeah. Like me and Bridget were talking about Han and Chewie. I was also waiting for Han and Lando because I feel like of the characters in this movie, those are really the only two who you have a basis on for how Han acts around them and how they act around him. And I think that Donald Glover and
it's okay.
Alden, it's usually like every time we do one of these Star Wars reviews, I have the hardest time pronouncing the character names. Now it's the character and the actors, and I'm not appreciating it. I don't know, but him and
Bridget told you.
I know, but that was like what 8 minutes ago. Jeez,
it could have been more than 4 minutes ago.
I am speaking in parsecs, Bridget. I mean,
Oh my God, dude,
She will die and kill you along. She will take you down.
Oh man, I felt like I just did a critical hit on a boss.
Oh yeah.
But it's like one of those bosses that explodes when you hit them, so you get hit. Yeah, no, but their chemistry was great, and Lando was just like I was saying. I'm really glad that he wasn't just in the one scene that they were showing in the trailers. I'm glad that he was actually a part of the movie. I think he did such a good job playing the character. Like Donald Glover, I'm so excited to see him. Like if they do make, and they're going to, when they make more solo movies, I'm really hoping Lando's a part of them still. I'm also hoping that if they're going to continue with this solo movie trend, solo as in solo Star Wars movies, that they give Lando one of them. Because I mean, we already have Boba Fett coming out, and Kenobi's been rumored for years, and I feel like they're actually going to try and do it now. If they're going to do it, I'd really like to see Lando Calrissian and get a little bit more into his backstory, because he's one of my favorite Star Wars characters, and I really like hearing about what he's gone through. And I think that Donald Glover is just the right person for the job, like 100%.
I don't know. I think we definitely got that with the vlogging he was doing. Like, I think they kind of alluded to the fact that there might be other adventures.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, he's definitely got just as interesting a story as Han Solo does, and even more so, in my opinion. So I'm excited to see what they do with him. Hopefully they don't overdo it. I don't need like 20 Lando movies. 1 or 2 is fine, but
really, 1 or 2?
1 or 2 is fine. It's
endless, I tell you.
What do you guys think about that? I mean, are you okay with?
Whew.
I know we've asked this question before, like every time, but
we'll talk about it in a few minutes before Bridget leaves. In the meantime, I would love to know what Bridget thought of Lando. I haven't heard her say anything yet.
I really liked him. I never cared for Lando much in one way or the other, and I have no idea why. He was just always like this other cool character in Star Wars. He wasn't like a favorite or anything. And then Donald Glover played him, and he's just fantastic, and I love everything about him. I loved the scene where the fire is in the ship, and they use one of his capes to put it out, and he just freaks out.
So offended. Offended. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love his attachment to his style and his, persona. And even when he's vlogging, the way he carries himself, he's, very into who he is. And I thought that was great, And I think the reason it works is because he's not the main character. So we can bring him here and put some, add some flair to him, and we're going to love him. And Donald Glover is just great, pretty much at everything he does. Damn him forever. But it was really entertaining, and I don't know how we're going to work in a Lando movie unless we go back, because now, well, spoiler alert, Han Solo has the Millennium Falcon, so we know how that ends in Empire Strikes Back, how they meet again. So I don't know what else they could add him in the solo movies, but maybe a side movie for him, maybe. I wanted to ask, it took forever for us to get a droid in this movie, and then we finally have it. It's a female droid, or so we think. I don't know. There was a lot of questions about everything. And they kind of made her, or it, into this social justice warrior. And I don't I can't tell if that was like a making fun of it move or a real thing, because it doesn't last very long. So I don't know how to feel about the droid. I don't know. How do you guys feel about it?
It is a little hard to tell. I mean, like, there were points in the movie where what she was doing and saying was kind of like sort of extreme to the point where you're like, okay, this is clearly like a parody,
Exactly.
right? But at the same time, it also kind of seemed like she really did care about, like, droid rights and everything. And I think that's a really interesting perspective we've only gotten like little tidbits of. I mean, C-3PO and who's McCall from Rogue One also are kind of like self-aware droids who kind of don't really conform to how a droid's supposed to be. They don't just take orders lightly. I mean, C-3PO pretty much did, but he also kind of had a mind of his own. He was just, afraid all the time. But yeah, it's kind of hard to tell because, like I said, it kind of seems like sometimes he's being a little too extreme, but then other times it really feels like that's what the character thinks. But I think she was really just there for comedic purposes. I think that it was a very interesting door to open. I'm really hoping that they show it a little bit more in the future with Star Wars. Like, I think it'd be really interesting to see this sort of droid revolution thing take place. But I don't know. I mean, what do you think, Bridget?
I agree that she was mostly there for comedic purposes, and I thought she was hysterical. It seemed almost like this was what she was at some point, that she honestly believed this, and there was something that malfunctioned with her, because Lando has said that he wants to wipe her memory, because it seems like there's like actually something wrong with the hardware, or well, I guess the software, if he's just wiping the memory. Not the point.
Technicalities.
I think the most interesting part, or the most real part behind it, was when they're still at that bar where they meet Lando, and she's like getting into an argument with the owner, and she turns to Lando and says it's not right. They don't even serve our kind here. And he goes, you're right. It's not, but we can't sit here and argue about it. And I think like that was a very small moment, and they probably could have had a few more of those in there, but it added some sort of weight behind what she was saying.
Oh, yeah.
I think it does. I just think the reason I feel it's a little not great, it's because they didn't lead anywhere with it, And so, again, we keep having these little moments in this movie that don't have any real consequence in the end. And so, where are you taking me, movie? Like, what is your point? And in a movie that it's not centered around the Force or the Jedis or whatever, and just sort of mentions the rebellion here and there, then, like, put your foot in it, if these are the side stories we're going to do, then really do them. Don't just like mention a few things and make this droid kind of annoying. She was a little annoying, I'm really sorry. And it has nothing to do with the fact that she wants equal rights for droids, because I thought that was really cool. But it was just like every time she has to talk, it was so like in your face. And I don't know, it was the movie where we got the least amount of a droid. And I kind of hated it. I wish it would have been more and more fun. I don't know. That was another thing. Like, I didn't find this movie funny. And I don't know if I was expecting it to be funny, but maybe because it's Han, I was expecting to laugh more. I barely laughed in this movie. And I don't know if that was me. I don't know if they were just trying to be serious, but it just felt very humorless for a Han Solo movie.
That's fair. I mean, but to be fair, Han, I think what really threw me off is that Han was never really a comedic character. He was sort of like the straight man, and just comedic stuff would happen around him. In this movie, it was kind of almost the opposite, wherein there were serious people around him, but he'd be the one cracking the jokes most of the time, and they'd hit or miss.
Yeah.
It was really only Chewbacca who kind of, when Chewbacca, it was actually more like Chewbacca was the straight man in this movie. Like, they kind of bounced off each other. They would go back and forth. Like, Chewbacca would say something funny and Han would react, or Han would say something funny and Chewbacca would react. But I don't know. I kind of liked the balance between it, because I didn't want it to be too overtly funny, but I also didn't want it to take itself too seriously. I feel
like they did that.
You think so?
Yep. I feel like they wanted it to be very serious, and I think it's ridiculous. And actually, one of the huge problems they had is that they fired the directors because they wanted the actors to improvise more and make it a bit funnier. And the screenwriter, I forget his name, Caslin, I don't know, was so, they said he was basically like being a shadow director. He was like so upset that they were changing his lines. he was so committed to the script. So there was a huge creative differences there. I just expected something a bit more fun, you know, like something a little more light. And it just felt serious a lot throughout for something that doesn't have much consequence, in my opinion. Because Rogue One, I understand. Rogue One was depressing, and it had to be. Like, there was not much there. But this could have been really fun, and I just felt like it was a little too serious and lifeless for a long time. And then Lando comes, and the Kessel Run happens, and the 12 parcels, and that was freaking great. And then we get to the turning point and the climax, and okay, can we talk about the end? Does it matter? Did anything felt important?
No.
And that's how I feel. It's like, okay, this happened. Apart from that one thing, which I nearly died when it happened. But then again, nothing really happens with it. It's just like, oh, this thing, get ready for the sequel if there is one. And then nothing happens.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's my main issue with the movie. Like I said, I really enjoy how Alden played Han Solo. I think it was a really good idea to sort of give him these human characteristics and sort of put him on the path to where he's going. And I enjoyed the world around him. I really liked the cast. I like this cast of characters more than I did the Rogue One cast of characters. But that's just me. I know some people disagree with that. But it just kind of felt like ultimately, like the goal they were going towards hasn't really been met yet, you know? And I understand it's because this is the first in a planned series of movies, but I kind of think it's sort of a cop-out to sort of just end a movie and then say, oh, we'll continue later on. Like, it can be done. Like, you can... Yeah. Like, Marvel does it a lot, and you can reference later, like, future movies, but if you base one movie solely on referencing another one, like, that's what happened with Age of Ultron. It's why I'm not a big fan of it, because it was simply just to reference Civil War. Like, oh, get ready for all this stuff that's coming on later, but there has to be a balance. Like, you have to get people interested in what's going on now enough so that when you reference what's going on later, they'll still be interested. You can't just spend the whole movie... And they didn't do it to the extent Age of Ultron did. This movie definitely had its own story, but it was a story that still isn't really complete because now that thing at the end happened, which, by the way, to all the people who are spoiling that thing at the end because you didn't like the movie, please stop. That's not cool.
I mean, like, it's not that. It's not a massive thing, is it? It's
not massive, but I feel like...
It's a nice surprise, but it's not massive.
Like, there's been about 3 people on my Facebook feed who are like, hey, this thing happens in Solo. And I'm like, well, I mean, come on.
Let's face it, those people are always going to do that no matter which movie. They just suck.
It's true. But I don't know. I feel like they're going to do some stuff with that later on. And like I said, I enjoyed the movie enough to... if they make a sequel, I'm going to go out and see it. But I'm hoping that the sequel improves upon the flaws that this movie had. Like, it just, to me, it felt pretty rushed. A lot of it was predictable. I did like the acting. I did like the characters. Really surprised by how Alden played Han Solo. I loved Lando, but it just kind of, there's just little kinks in the armor that I feel like can really get buffed out, that they can definitely fix in the sequel should they go ahead with it, you know?
Bridget, I know you have to leave, so what do you think?
I think this movie was fine. Like I said, I was satisfied by it. For me, it felt like they were just trying to correct their parsec misuse in A New Hope, because that was it. That's all that seemed to be of consequence from this whole movie, except for that one thing at the end. They were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna fix the science that we screwed up by screwing up other science."
Does that make you happy?
I'm happy that they fixed it. I'm not happy that they screwed other parts up.
Okay.
But I don't have enough time to explain that right now.
That's fine.
Next time.
Do you want us to leave it at that for you, Bridget? Do you have to go?
Yeah, I do have to go.
Okay. So Bridget is going to head off now because she's important and has to do adult stuff. I always say that and it sounds awful. I'm sorry. Every time I hear it, I'm like, no, that's not it.
Yeah, and it does not help that she's always like, I can't really talk about my job right now.
Oh no. Bridget is a wholesome person, I promise. She has to go to work.
Mostly.
Mostly. Where it counts.
Except where she makes you cry, which happens.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I did that.
Oh no, I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about Adonis.
I don't cry.
Yeah, definitely not going to apologize.
I tear up a little bit, but no tears drop, you know?
Oh, do you like suck them back in? It's like, no, I will not cry over Bridget.
I won't give her the satisfaction.
All right, Bridget, thank you so much for joining us. Bye. Okay, so that's pretty much our review of Solo. I think, just to wrap it up, I think it's enjoyable. I don't find it surprising, but it was more enjoyable than I thought it would be.
Mhm.
It just feels kind of unnecessary, and that you're not really missing much if you don't go see it. And I don't know if you're a hardcore Star Wars fan, I don't know how you will feel about it. But to me, it was along the lines of The Last Jedi. It was just like, I don't know. I'd give it a 6 out of 10, 6.5. That's kind of like my rating for it.
Mm-hmm. I guess my final thoughts, I'd have to say, it's not spectacular, but it's also not so bad that you could get mad over it. You know, like, I feel like a lot of Star Wars fans are going to have to sort of check their expectations at the door, because this definitely isn't going to be like a large scale movie. Like, if you're coming off of how you felt with Last Jedi, this is definitely not good. Even aesthetically, this does not feel like the same movie. And I think I really enjoyed that. I mean, I like how they're trying different things with Star Wars. If they're going to keep this going for like 40 plus years, like they say they are, at the very least, trying different things with like directorial style is good to me, at least. You know, at least it won't get too stale. I'm kind of on you. I'm kind of at the same point as you. I feel like it wasn't really necessary. Not that they couldn't have told it, but I just feel like it would have also been really good on Netflix or something.
Yeah.
But you know, like it's a fun movie, and I really had a good time with it. Definitely didn't dislike it. I'd give it like a C+ to a B, and I'd watch it again. It just doesn't really hold like a big spot in Star Wars. I think if you're a fan of Han Solo and you want to see more stories starring Han Solo, there you go. Like, there's this movie, but
yeah, there you go.
Like, it's over there. And I think that's kind of where I am with like this whole thing about how Star Wars is going to keep going for so many years. I think there's going to be those important ones that people are going to want to see, and then there's going to be ones where it's like, it's there if you want to see it, but you don't have to go see it. Like,
yeah.
And that's kind of how it's going to be with me. I don't think I'm going to see. I mean, I'm probably going to see every single one just because I like to watch movies.
They're banking on that for sure. They're counting on that for sure.
They're counting, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you know, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
It's kind of going to be how Marvel's doing it, you know, with Ant-Man and the Wasp, which
good Lord,
I definitely want to talk about when it comes out, because it's kind of weird. Like, I'm excited, but also Infinity War just came out. Don't care.
Don't care.
I'm still crying over Infinity War. I don't want to try and laugh.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's pretty much it about it. Just average. Check it out if you want. You won't miss out on much. But you mentioned something about the next 40 years, and I'm already sweating over that fact. We were going to discuss briefly, but Bridget had to leave, about Star Wars and the franchise and the fact that Disney is now just like milking everything about it. And look, it's an entire universe. I get that. There's plenty of places you can go to, plenty of gaps you can fill. I understand that. But I personally feel a movie per year of Star Wars is a lot. You're not giving people the time to breathe, even if it's not the main story, which is the trilogies. I don't think you're giving people the time to breathe, to absorb it, to let it become part of your pop culture, to let it become part of your childhood or of your teenage years or anything. I am pretty done with that. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, there's a lot of pressure on all the filmmakers too, because like when you start to do stuff year round, it's really not good quality. Like, it's with like one of my favorite franchises, kind of a side thing, but also sort of relevant. One of my favorite video game franchises is Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
And they had that fatigue because for the longest time they would bring one out, like just dole one out every year, and it's like, this is getting tiring. Then they took a year off, and Assassin's Creed Origins came out, and oh my god, it's the best game ever. Like, just a year off is like just a small difference like that. And you know, that's another thing too. If you're gonna do Star Wars year round every year, there's other ways to do it. Like, you have comic books, you have books, you have video games. You have TV shows. It doesn't have to be a movie every year. You can, if you're gonna, I understand it's a big world and people want more of it and they want to see their favorite characters and their favorite universes, but there's definitely different ways to do it than just doing a movie a year, which I think is kind of pushing it.
It's a very tight schedule, and like you said, when you have that schedule, production will suffer. Look, and I get that they make a lot of money.
Yeah.
I get just having the Star Wars name in it. It makes you a lot of money. But I personally think you're ruining the franchise. I think part of what made it so great that we were getting the prequels is that there was an easily, I don't know, 15, 17 years in between. There was like a big gap there, and people were able to make Star Wars their thing. You were a geek if you like Star Wars, all this stuff. And then the prequels came. Whatever happened with them, it doesn't matter. The point is, people wanted it to happen because enough time had passed and they had enough time in their lives to absorb that story and make it part of who they were. Generations grew up with this, and then it's like, oh my god, 3 new movies, that's amazing. And now we're getting these ones, which wasn't a bad idea, but then suddenly we have all these like anthologies and all these other side stories, and there's like another talk of another trilogy that no one knows what it's about, but it's in the books, like it's there. So it's like, I think the story of Star Wars is pretty concise in the sense of good and evil and the chosen one and the prodigy and what's going to happen. So I don't know, you making kind of the same formula again and again of 3 people, a droid, and some weird creature, I think it'll get old eventually. I really do think so. But then again, I said that about Marvel and it doesn't seem to be happening. So what do I know?
I mean, it's also a little different. Like you made a really good point. It's a lot of these Star Wars movies sort of follow the same formula where they have these characters and then they have the droid. Marvel's doing that a little bit differently because like they have different directors come in for different tasks, and like you can look at the movies and see how different they are. Like they share a very similar heroic theme, but you have like spy thrillers like Captain America, you have straight up action hero movies like the Avengers titles, and then you have stuff like Black Panther, which completely changed the game. I think keeping that freshness is a good idea. Hopefully they keep that in the foreseeable future after Avengers 4, and I'm hoping that Star Wars at least try something like that, if they're going to keep doing this, because I think it really is about quality over quantity.
Absolutely.
So I think that should definitely be their first priority, is if what we're doing, if it's good. Like Solo, like we said, it was passable. I liked it a lot more than I thought, and it definitely wasn't a bad movie in any way. It wasn't the best, and it doesn't have to be the best, but I feel like if it had been any worse, then it would have been like, why make this movie? Like there's
a lot of
really
people
no
already
reason
feel
to.
that way. No one was really looking forward to Solo, and then Boba Fett movie to me is a ridiculous idea. It's just, and that's where I feel like, and obviously it's more about money than the fans, and a lot of the fans are angry about it because they feel like Disney does not care about the Star Wars fan. They're just like trying to make cool toys, and I get it. I mean, it makes sense. The whole thing with the porgs or quargs or whatever they're named, I don't know what they are, The Last Jedi, was ridiculous. That was a ridiculous marketing technique and toy, and I hate the look of it. I mean, obviously it worked, but that's not the point. I just think it's a lot. I think it's a lot. I think it benefits more from time off, because imagine a Harry Potter movie every year. Like it's exhausting, even if it's not about Harry Potter per se, but the Harry Potter universe and Hogwarts and everything. It's exhausting. It's a lot. You're stretching it thin. And I think it loses magic. I truly do. I think the more you show something, the more common it becomes and the less magical it becomes. And you need to let generations grow up with it, not just like bombard them with it. And I don't know. I guess we will see. It's not stopping anytime soon.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see.
And I think another problem is that we're not going to stop watching them. Like, come on, they know that. We know that. We can complain all we want, but we want to go to the next one and make sure we either hate it or love it. We have to have an opinion of it. And it still makes them money, no matter what we think of it.
Yeah. It's definitely a loop that just does not end.
I don't know. I'm personally against it. How about you?
Like I said, I'm just kind of sort of just riding the line between optimistic and pessimistic. Like I said, there's always I'm always gonna watch the Star Wars movies just because I review movies and because I'm a Star Wars fan. So like you said, I want to go and see them and see if it's okay. But Like I said, there's always going to be movies that I feel are going to be important, quote unquote. Like Episode 9, I'm going to go see because I really like Last Jedi, and that's the main trilogy, and so obviously I want to close that. But movies like Solo are movies that are just a little bit lower on the bar for me. Like I won't rush out to see them unless I really have to. Like for instance, if we're recording and we need to talk about them, then yeah, I'll go see them. But if we weren't recording, I probably wouldn't have seen Solo. I still haven't seen Deadpool 2, so I probably would have gone to see that this weekend.
Deadpool is a priority for sure.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's pretty much everything we have for you guys about Star Wars and Solo. Let us know in the comments section, how do you feel about the Star Wars franchise? Do you think it should dwindle down? Do you think it should keep going? Just let us know how you feel about the schedule and the movies coming out recently. We would love to know.
And if you guys want to voice your opinion on who you think should get a Solo movie next, or like a Solo trilogy, mine's Lando. Go ahead and say that too. Please don't say Jar Jar Binks.
I don't think anyone will say that.
Lucasfilm is definitely watching all internet history, and if we say that too much, they're going to start to believe we actually want that.
No, I think they know to steer clear away from Jar Jar. I would personally say no more Solo movies, but that's going to happen, so we'll see. Yeah, so that's pretty much for our first episode coming back. Really excited to hear from you guys. Don't forget you can find us on Twitter if you look for PT Characters. Yeah, that's our Twitter handle. And we always leave our email if you want to leave us any notes, any opinions, and we'll read them next time if we have enough of them. Donis, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at FanJournalist. Tweet some things sometimes. It's really fun. That's pretty much it. I mean, not anywhere on the internet yet. I'm going to be coming back to the internet pretty soon. Going to start up my own little WordPress blog, actually pay, so it looks nice and fancy.
Very cool.
But for now, just, look for me on Twitter and see if I say anything controversial. I haven't yet, but
we'll see about that.
Bound to happen.
Yeah, you can find me if you look for CineClub channel pretty much everywhere. That's also my YouTube channel, and you'll probably get a shorter review of Solo there. And I'm also working on a bucket list video, which is when I review a few movies from my bucket list, like movies I want to see before I die. So all the classics are there. And as for Bridget, I'm pretty sure Bridget is Bridget Surdock everywhere because she has a very lucky name. And I don't know if she's tweeting a lot, but if you find her on Instagram, she doodles a lot, and it's really funny. So you should go and check her out. She's a very funny, She's a very funny, dark soul, and I appreciate that about her. So yeah, let us know, you guys, if there's anything you want us to talk about. It's just like we're friends talking about movies, so we're not always looking to talk about new releases. So if you have any subjects or things you want us to talk about or research, we will definitely do that. And we will see you next time. From Puerto Rico, I am Maria Garcia.
From Buckeye, I'm Adonis Gonzalez.
And somewhere in Connecticut, Bridget is working. And we will see you next time.